incredible.
Continuously, but when it's watch this one. No, there's no recycling. So the water.
Oh my God.
Well, and when
The jungle.
the tank shuts off, when it's half empty, it kicks in.
Michelle would be good down here. His sister. I wish she would even.
Yeah, and then see how all the plant life is growing there because all the water is pouring through those two rocks there between them.
Right.
Yeah, this is the unclad, but there's nothing down there.
Right.
Yeah.
These are just street. Look
Yeah,
at that.
Put your hand in the water.
Okay.
It's not cold.
Oh, the water is great.
Yes,
The water is great. And your well's 100 feet deep, so you got good water.
Okay, I'm going to go right through.
It cannot be anything but longitudinal disturbance of the ether, okay? Which we know it's the black sun's magnetic pole, it's the black.
For these genuine, hard-hitting, good, really good, newsworthy videos that are worth watching. And if you post a link to it on Facebook or other places like, yeah, that they'll flag it, they'll immediately recognize, they don't want you to watch it. You should always be interested in the stuff that evil media does not want you to watch.
I define the word duality for you really simply here. Duality means something that stupid human beings don't understand. Because there's absolutely nothing in the purest parts of fundamental nature and field mechanics that has any connection to a duality. Nature does not deal in duality.
I know you've never heard of it before, but you find it in books on metaphysics and religions, where you'll look in the footnotes to these scholastic books, and they'll tell you all the stuff that they disagree with. That's where all the juicy stuff is. So you don't actually read the book by these evil people. What you do is you read the footnotes talking about the stuff that they can't stand. When someone tells you that you shouldn't watch this because it's been fact-checked. Well, who's fact-checking the fact-checkers, right? You shouldn't watch this. You know exactly what I'm talking about. There's these videos, there's many of them, yeah? And some of them are just not worth watching because they're just wackadoodle nonsense, which of course there's been that out there since forever.
Mother Nature works. Really simple. Force and motion, inertia and acceleration. There's only one field modality. You know, if you think gravity is one thing, electricity is another thing, and magnetism is another, then you are as stupid as a person that thinks ice is one thing, and water is another thing, and steam. No, it's all water. They're just different phases of the same thing. Everything is phase. Everything is either transverse, longitudinal, or toroidal. Toroidal is just nothing other than a partial circular. Because the conjugate nature of the universe, and I'll leave you with that, as I pointed out before, because this is the true geometry of the universe. Because everything is dielectricity or magnetism, or a complex modality thereof. This is the secret geometry of the universe. I will show you right now, and I can assure you this is the case. If aliens were to land, and I were to draw this geometry, they would know immediately what the hell I was talking about. This is the secret geometry of the universe. Now, you could stylize all of this within a circle, but this is force and motion. Everything works off the right-hand rule in electricity, by the way. Right-hand rule, because these are obviously 90 degrees to one another, right? This is centripetal. i.e. dielectric, increasing inertia, the big I. And this is a force in motion, right here. Force in motion. Inertia and acceleration. This is centrifugal, and this is centripetal, right? Centripetal being like a drain, right? Pull the drain on your bathtub, things go down the drain like this. And here's, this is the null point. Because at the center of gravity, there is no gravity. At the center of a magnet, and this is testable by the way, not my opinion, it's fact. Center of a magnet, there is no magnet. Most powerful magnet in the world, if you go to the center of it, you'll find that there is no magnetic flux. The center of all field modalities, there is zero of that field modality. At the center of illumination, there is no illumination. Light doesn't exist. Illumination is a coaxial circuit. A compounded coaxial circuit, transverse electromagnetic, longitudinal pulse perturbation of dielectric. The E and M are the carrier of the pulse perturbation. Very high energy light is the fundamental particle, i.e. hydrogen. If we were to take the very far end of the electromagnetic spectrum towards super high energy, just past gamma, you will end up with very high energy light. In this case we mean the fundamental particle of the universe, i.e. hydrogen. There's no such thing as an electron. Tesla said that was bullshit. Charles Proteus Steinmetz said that was bullshit. Oliver Heaviside said that was bullshit. These are the giants of electrical engineering. Far smarter than you and me and all the rest of you combined. Period. I would like to see you refute Charles Proteus Steinmetz. The guy was kind of famous for just having fun and writing out complex math equations, some of which are 20 pages plus long, that some of which have never even been figured out today. They're just too huge. That's a true statement, by the way. So, I hope you liked this video, and I'll leave it at that, and catch you later. Bye.
You don't go out. Anyway, you should always watch what other people tell you. You shouldn't be watching this. And those are always the market. Unintelligent and evil people always will put up those roadblocks. People trying to crush free speech. They don't want you to say things. People that don't like freedom, people that want power and control over you, should never be given power. But the first thing that those people want to do is actually cut off your ability to have free speech and your ability to defend yourself and your family. That's the reason why the First and Second Amendment in the United States are always the number one things under attack.
We are all part of one absolute reality, the one thing. Consciousness expresses itself in different states and forms of the same one phenomenon, and they are continuously influencing and morphing into each other. Because of this absolute reality, you shouldn't be fighting monsters that can't be seen. You shouldn't fight monsters that aren't in your way. Being a part of the absolute reality of the one thing can be ignored, but that ignorance doesn't change the oneness that resides within and without.
Stuff that evil media does not want you to watch. Always! He's like, why don't they want me to watch this stuff? What is it about this that, like when I posted that link on Facebook to that video? Oh my god, immediately, oh, you shouldn't watch this video, and here's 12 fact checks. And I looked at some of the fact checks, like, okay, maybe there's some validity to possible some errors in this video. The fact checking stuff was spurious, specious, fallacious, nonsensical, no hardcore evidence. It was pure subjective twaddle and poppycock. I mean, this was not fact. Well, this is wrong because boom, boom, boom. These were not fact checking links to contradict the video at all. You should always be interested, and of course make up your own mind. I don't care what anybody believes in. I don't tell anybody what to do or what to believe in their life. I just don't care. By the way, anybody that's really interested in making you believe something, they are by definition evil. Wisdom is its own reward. When you actually have wisdom and you seek wisdom and you have a modicum of wisdom, you don't go trying converting to other people, make them change their mind. You don't care what people do. You know, you really doesn't. You don't bother me or my home or my business. I don't care what sort of crazy, silly beliefs people have.
Magnetic pole, the black hole, center of the outside of the bending light. Light, as we know it, it can be nothing else but a sound in the ether. Okay? Science, physics, not been able to prove what light is, but we know what light does. It's an action of light waves, and they try to measure it through this thing called the protons. And this is an illogical method, as they can't find the field in light to observe light. Okay, so like a vocal frequency propagation in the ether is actually the proper way to explain, analyze, and examine light. Not through the medium of and within the medium. Okay? Light bulbs, lasers, and sun, they do not emit light. Okay? It cannot be traveling. It's not, there's no such thing as speed of light. That is called a light reduction. Right? The retro reduction. Okay? Light is an ether. Okay? In other words, but we can't analyze it because we can't find it. It does not travel, it has no speed. Light is 5 times 1. 5 to 1. Magnetic universe. U inverse. So it's a magnetical universe that we're seeing. Light is an inertial plane. Okay? It's the product of the disturbance within the ether, is what our brains project and previews. As this illumination we see and we call, quote unquote, light, is an illumination. We see that, which again has never been proven. Okay? We cannot observe light because science is unable to find the field. We see the wave. It's something that it's doing. What is it? Is the question. But this is an action of this ether source, and not expressing what light actually is. Prove light exists, but first find the field. And physics and modern science cannot properly explain or do this. I can't answer where the field is. So, if we don't understand counter space, well, sadly, we don't know jack shit. So, everything I just said above goes out the window with the baby. Go innerstand, overstand, counter space. Dark energy, as they call it, or counter-mutual or central fugal inertia. Dielectric acceleration, center being poured out, and then all that happens is a buildup of magnetism and electricity, which is, in a sense, electromagnetic inversion. Same thing with the AC inverter, it's the opposite of conversion of what magnet is. Basically, is what makes this conduit like an AC connection. So all light is coaxial circuit transverse that sits on the electromagnetic spectrum of 5 to 1. Okay, 5 to 1. Look at that right there. You know? This is spiral, 369, right? So the rate of retroduction equals light or release of energy. Okay? We cannot properly observe what energy is, what light is, the emitting of it, the illumination of it, okay? Light release of energy, it's retroduction. So that's the only thing we know, is what it does. There's two different types of retroduction that we can analyze. The pulsating light, the bending back forward, okay? Every bit of life, in fact, in this universe is capacitance, permeability, resistance, and permittivity. Okay? So go and research each one of those. It could take your whole lifetime. To understand magnetism is a huge deal. So consider again, every bit of life in this U inverse that you created is capacitance, permeability, resistance.
People that want power should never be given power. That's why all politicians are evil. They absolutely are. The only way to really elect people is you have a true group of disinterested, wise folk, be a dozen or 100, and they pick someone against their will. It's like, we want you to leave because you're the smart. No, I don't want the job. No, I don't want that job. No, you need to do it for the betterment of the people. You know, unfortunately that circumvents elections and other things, but it always gives you better results. And it's, of course, Plato's answer to the philosopher king. The person doesn't want the job, they're the most qualified, they have no interest in the job. People that want power over others should never be given it, no matter how pure they seem superficially. But that's almost politics, but not really, and I'm definitely not into politics. I'm into facts, logic, and wisdom, and what rings true and what is empirically valid, and also to, I'm not going to get on that tangent, but I've had it up to here with the lying media. The lying media has always been bad, but now they're really showing their true colors. And always search out the truth independent of, everything online. If it's hooked to a coax cable or hooked to a satellite dish, and you're paying for evil people to enter your home and appear on your TV set and lie to you, you're paying good money for people to lie, cheat, and steal and deceive you. Unfortunately, that's what all of us are doing, really. Seek out information, seek out facts, say, this is what I believe, but is it true? It's not. You should always seek to transcend yourself and what your beliefs are. People aren't willing to do that, though. They think they are their belief. I am my belief. This is the reason why all wars and strife goes on in the world, because people think they are their beliefs. You are not your belief. Nobody is their beliefs. You are not anything you think, feel, or believe. That is not who you are. People that, you attacked my beliefs. That's the same thing as attacking me. This is how all wars and strife starts. It's a timeless thing. You should have been taught that in school, high school, or college, but none of you were taught that stuff, including me. You have to transcend your beliefs, and the lying media, what they're doing is they're fanning the flames of division, and what they're going to do is they're going to kick off, I can't say it because the algorithms are always listening, they're going to kick off the CIVILWA and the R. They're going to kick that off. I don't want them to kick that off. But they keep fanning polarization and division rather than unity. Then that's what they're going to have. They're just making everybody hate each other. And it's, there's a lot about, like I said, you take the worst people in the world and you stick them in a room and you give them free booze and food and all the money they could handle. They're all happy, You can only test people under hard times and tough circumstances. And these are the tough circumstances that people are being tested. The media is showing their true colors. They are fundamentally evil. If they were about reporting the news, last time people really reported the news has been like 1970. Mid-1970s was the last time, genuine, hard-hitting news investigation was done. John Stossel is a good one. Nobody could ever figure out if John Stossel was a lefty or a righty. He followed the facts, he reported the facts, and he made statements based upon extensive investigation. That stuff doesn't exist anymore, unfortunately. The media has always been corrupt, but now they're insanely corrupt because they're showing their true colors. Don't listen to them, Don't listen to them. Stop fanning the flames of division. But me saying that's not going to stop it. It's going to continue to ramp up and ramp up. And I hope it doesn't reach the breaking point, because if it does, then whoa, Nelly. That's going to be a bad time for a lot of people. Anyway, have a good day, the best you can. And to all the настоящие крепкие русские народы out there, увидимся, huh? I know there's always a few Russian followers watching. Okay, goodbye. Goodbye. If you like these videos, any support's always kindly welcome, because I don't sell anything, no hats, no shirts, no garbage like the rest of these shills do. Okay? Thanks. Goodbye.
Woo! Life just keeps getting better and better and better! Stick with me and you'll find out how and why. Tonight's topic of discussion is about realizing what you perceive will be your reality. Always. Bula, hello and namaste, all of my soul tribe of conscious creators and rainbow warriors out there. Are you having the most amazing now ever?
And so you are a black sun baby. That's what we all start out as. Now you're a living soul. Welcome to the family of yourself. It's a realization.
And you're extremely intelligent. I mean, whew. I am sure that your IQ is beyond what they would consider here the norm, the archons, as you say, because you're extremely intelligent. And so you don't have a good relationship with your family.
Will be your Alright, so everybody, let's just enjoy these few moments of now and just breathe in the amazingness of vitamin N and just be grateful and thankful for everything because we have no complaints whatsoever.
I was going to ask you something else. You don't have any black friends? Sorry if that's offensive, but I think I can be maybe too upfront with my questions sometimes.
When you feel it, you believe it, you say it, you know it, you mean it, and you realize it, it will be real. Your reality, you can create anything you desire. I'll tell you how. So inhale that deep.
Well, there's many, as they say, meanings to a picture, right? Picture worth millions and billions of words, right? Words are just archon-made reflections of these fragmental, polygon, conscious shapes that we make, right?
I like to share whatever we talk about. I tell my daughter a lot, my older one, and she, she's also an archon, but she's also extremely intelligent. So she was telling me how she has a 2-year-old, and so yes, I'm a grandma, and she was telling me how the little girl behaves. Her behavior is so what we would consider misbehaved, and my daughter said that she's very consistent and try to implement structure. And they went to the store today, and the daughter is allergic to nuts, and she wanted Reese's, and her, the Reese's chocolate, and my daughter told her, you can't have that, that gives you owie. And she's like, well, I said I want it, and I want it. And she just went on and on and on, and just embarrassed my daughter and start hitting her and telling her and spitting on her and kicking her. And my daughter was like, oh my God, she's never seen that behavior. But my daughter was like, it almost like something else takes over her, and it's been happening. What do you think that is? What do you think when little kids have exercise behaviors like that? Because I also hear that people say when you're born very pure and clean and with no negative anything, When you're born just completely clean and pure, and I don't know how to say it, and you were just molded by your parents. So tell me your take on that. Because the only thing I told her is, The only thing I can say is that you just have to be consistent with your behavior, because, or with your discipline. You know, she just has a work cut out for her. Just has to be consistent and continue implementing structure until, you know, some point when the daughter gets older, she'll get it. I don't know. What do you think?
In very good shape. There may have been other problems that developed in the interim, but by that time of the 26th century, they got a handle on synthetic intelligence, and they decided to go ahead and rebuild civilization using what they call the Llama system, the system of intelligence, created in a crystalline form, consciously aware, and having certain other abilities which would normally be classed as metaphysical. These computers were able to do things which perhaps some of our best gurus would have trouble doing. Manipulation of matter, manipulation of time by these computers. So they were not unintelligent, they were very intelligent. But they had no ethics or morality as we understand them, and as we use them. So my question to myself, or perhaps to anyone else, is, are these guys looking now, perhaps, for another solution?
Inhale that deep belly, make your belly really expand. You want to get all of the amazing air into your belly through your lungs, and just breathe in happiness. Exhale gratitude. And again.
Obviously, we learned in this century that if there is no competitive spirit, if there is no desire to succeed, if there is no pressure on an individual to learn, to do something constructive, to succeed, to help build some little corner, a brick or two in our civilization, without that pressure, people don't do anything. And if you suddenly wind up in a situation where all of your needs and wants are granted for free, and you don't have to go out and work for them, you don't have to do something to go get them, you don't have to cut down trees, go out and skin animals for their furs to survive, but suddenly everything's handed to you on a silver platter. Yeah, at first it seems great and will work for a while, but after a period of time it's going to fall apart.
Not necessarily true. In all cases, I will just say archons have a mysterious side to them where they want to promote a illusionary distraction to take you off the beaten path of your intuitional soul route, journey of enlightenment. In this case, it's very clear to see there are archons who are what I used to call Zupa Trupa shield keepers. The CIA operatives, they used to be data collectors for me. And of course, yes, you do spiritually, subconsciously create these entities. Without a doubt, you're making them from your inner shadow reflection, subconscious self. Yes, they hear your inner thoughts. This is why one can become paranoid, especially when taking hallucinogens or believing that you are under some 5G chemtrail or some other illusionary toxicity effect of the environment. You will naturally believe something and actually create it. This is known as psychosomatics as well in science and psychology. And what you're actually doing is you're not being spied on, you're not having a bug recording you or anything like that through your phone. I mean, that stuff could go on as we are electromagnetic beings, and it's easy to pick up. The inner pulse of what our conversation is consciously. So when we say anything consciously, it's already known in this universe. In this matrix image, you produce through your vibrations and bring it into the light when you speak it into existence. But it's not just about the words, it's about the visualization and intentions that are required. I'm about to introduce to you some nightmarish efficacies of our time, as well express my jungle, mansion, heaven, dream, and some really, really wild stories and things I want to thought profess for you today. So I hope you're ready. This is part 2 of unlocking the mysterious 7 keys of the universe. As well, don't forget to watch part 1. This will take you through different aspects of reality. I want to end this with a conclusion to the story right now. So, in the story, I talk about a father who catches me as I'm in a jungle-like mansion, and it was so wild. And I remember seeing 2 girls in this house. I later got caught by the father. I thought the whole time I lived in fear this father was going to come and shoot my head off because of what I had just done. So I hope you enjoyed the story. It's brief, but mainly what's so beautiful about what concluding factor actually took place was that it showed me an entirely different paradigm of reality, of what singularity can truly look like. Many times we cannot express or explain or grasp in this 3-dimensional labels, words, English, title, grammatical world the 5th dimension, and most cannot grasp it. And the other, on up to 8th and 10th and infinite dimensions, it's nearly impossible to a certain degree for a mind to fully comprehend or draw it out physically. So, in going in this inner jungle mansion inside the earth, I was also outside the earth at the same time, not being enclosed, like where you could have claustrophobia, but not being out, and nothing was being destroyed or built. It was perfection. I'd never really seen anything or experienced anything like this. And so when the Father had shown me this divine love, I literally cried and got pulled back into this conscious world, back to the 3rd dimension, and was just blown away. My mind was completely blown with this. There was a possibility that we can have complete peace, all with one each other, working with one another, and really having a selfless connection. And that's what was so amazing about this dream. I hope you enjoy it. And this is the proof. We can ascend and make this dream of mine a possibility. Like to walk in the park of the subconscious. That if you can visualize it, if you can intend on wanting it just hard enough, that you will magically magnetize and attract this into your reality. Push out all tension, all stress.
I'm sure that your IQ is beyond what they would consider here the norm, the art forms as you say here.
This is the story. This is the story to why she just said that.
What's up, Eric? Eric, remember you tell me all the time that this is all an illusion? You have to explain to me a little more what you mean, but this is just an illusion. I don't get it, because you even told me that we create our own reality. So then why is it an illusion if we're creating our own reality? You get me?
1133 equals 6, 7, 8. The full cycle of a spin. That's why you see 8 is like a 2 moons, 2 full circles, right? And a cycle of life going up and then back down. So I like to say like a fan, which actually we talked about how numbers, every word, it may be a way to communicate something, but it's a value, and it always has some definite value. You could say like take 1,000 different words or 100 words, and they could all equal the same value. And so that value has a characteristic or personality to it in a sense. So just like the word fan, as an example, that's 615, right? That equals 12, which is the beginning and the end, like, because it spirals and it spins. Fan. It's pretty interesting that happens to be that word, because fan, if you think about it, it's like everything that we are seeing. Imagine we see this big black hole, if you will. Again, these are words for me to describe when I say things like God, Goddess. These are man-made words for me to express and communicate to myself about things that maybe not necessarily what I refer to them as. Meaning, I could say the goddess of the void, the black sun, or Satan, or hell. Those are all man-made concepts. I did not invent those. Well, my higher self did. I may have invented them in one strain of event, time of chain of events at one time as ancient energies that we are, but essentially I just use these words piggybacking off other living soul energies in this matrix, the illusion. So illusion. So I'm going to get to that. Illusion. Reality. Realization. Right? So again, when I have that connection with this infinite source, which I could confirm, oh, this is the goddess, this is God. That energy, that knowing, that moment in time is the way I interpret it. For me, I know without a doubt that I connected with the backdrop, like I debugged the game. I'm the game programmer, and I had figured this out, and there was things I could do in that moment, connecting with this. And a lot of people give their power away and say, oh, I prayed to God and I saw what happened, right? But nobody's ever stepped back and tested with, or experimented, or hacked. Let's say hacked, because we're into a computing generation, hacking a simulation world. These are actually ancient ideas. Egyptians, with this dream I had was fucking nuts. Seriously, I just remember jumping right into it. You were there, your energy, because subconsciously, of course, it's always there, whether you're consciously aware that it's going on or not, or it's me, and now I'm expressing it to you consciously, so now it's being known to you. You can hear and listen to me tell you this story where I wake up in what I thought was like a mansion of a house, but it wasn't tall, it was long, like you're going through a house. It seemed like it just went on and on and on. And I thought, this is kind of crazy, going in this house, and how did I get here? And kind of like what you'd say a modern day nice looking subdivision house type thing. Kind of reminds me of Royal Oaks. And so all of a sudden, I'm in this house with these people, these literally little kids, these little girls, and all this stuff. And I thought, this is nuts. This is really crazy what's going on. And I had to walk through the house and kind of like hide my way. It wasn't really hiding. It was more like I just had to maneuver through. And it was like I wasn't being seen by anyone at that time, until later, going through the house, it was like it finally caught up. It seemed pretty long, and I was hiding, like I was in the couch, I was behind this, and I was just kind of interacting, observing how this family, who I thought they were a family, was living their life. And so long story short with it was that what was crazy is there was a split dichotomy between being in this, what I thought was a house that just seemingly went on forever, was actually in a jungle setting. So there was like trees that were draped around, and so the walls, there was no walls, so there was no barriers. It was all open, ongoing, like trees. So it was more like a forest, or a rainforest jungle. If you've ever been in a rainforest, it has like a ceiling of, say, palm trees or something like that, and it just seems like you're secluded. You're really reclusive almost in this dead space. Like, I mean, it's all just light, and it's like you're hidden away from any sunlight in certain areas. So anyway, that was part of it, and going through the house was like I had to maneuver, and I didn't want to get caught by this family at the time. It was the craziest shit, because the more I observed it, like everything was perfect. It was beyond perfect. Like I'd walk through, and then there was this way that like the little girls would be taking a shower or something. I was like, oh no. And the way it was designed is, you know, so you don't see. You could take your shower, be walking through the house, and not have to be a peek and Tom, for example. And I had seen these little kids, you know, they were doing that. They were playing amongst their own little day of coming back from the jungle, getting outside, having a thing, playing, pretend, whatever. And I was like, I can't get caught. Oh no, surely the dad will be here and stuff. And I don't want him to think I'm, you know, stalking or, you know, predatoring on his family. You know, his wife's there. She's an older woman. And it was just so crazy, because as you walk past that, there was like a kitchen. So it's like a jungle kitchen thing, and it's like a mansion. It just seems seemingly endless. I just didn't see where it ended at the time, and I felt I could go further back in different rooms and closets and different areas, but it wasn't anything like a normal house. That's the thing I'm getting at. This was a open space area. So again, you know, going into the kitchen was like a urban, like herbal garden, like tomatoes and fruits and berries and olives and grapes and different superfoods and berries were all just lined up on the trees. Everything worked just perfect. It was the most insane thing I've ever seen and experienced in my entire life, actually, the perfection. And then knowing that at this point it dawned on me, like from my experiences with houses living in this matrix, was that it was completely the opposite, and that the way we do things with the houses, the buildings, we destroy the trees and build these house structures, that this was incorrect. That we could have lived literally in, amongst, and with the trees instead of taking them, tearing them down, and using it against them. So it's interesting, because the father ends up catching me, connecting with this, and a lot of people give their power away and say, oh, I prayed to God and I saw what happened, right? But nobody's ever stepped back and tested with, or experimented, or hacked, let's say hacked, because we're into a computing generation, hacking a simulation world. These are actually ancient ideas. Egyptians, you know, with technology, electronics, this goes far back. So that makes you wonder, what is time? You know, it's a fourth dimension thing. So have we replayed and replaying these moments, these chain of events again and over with just new technological advancements? So let's look at a fan. We plug the fan in, right? It spins, and believe it or not, it cools you down, right? But why? It really makes no logical sense why a fan would cool you down, because all it's doing is pushing the hot air right back on you, isn't it? So is that really happening? I just want to be sure. Why is that? The final conclusion with that huge epiphany I had, which I call nothingness, grasping nothingness is what I think I'll call it from here on out, so you know what I'm talking about. That whole being over here in the prairie of the subconscious, ocean breeze and paradise in my mind, right? Now, is that as much of an illusion, or was that real? I experienced that and I felt it, right? So let's just even let go of all those things materially. The ocean, the prairie, the flowers, the coconuts, the oranges, apples in abundance, pure air, a nice temperature, a cool breeze. Let's just let go of that, being in that nice ocean. Okay, so we let it go. We were born yesterday, but we experienced everything we've experienced. And let's say we just let go of all words, titles, labels. We don't know anything in this matrix. We pull ourselves in this black nothingness, this void. None of that shit, nothing at all matters, right? But now we come back to this plane, this dimension. We call this the third dimension, and it's being recorded and measured by this fourth dimension. So outside of this, everything can be recorded basically as time. But when we ignore that time, what time it is, oh, I gotta go to work, I'm gonna be late, this calendar day is this holy day, it's a holy day because it falls on that time, all that. Let's say we actually just ignored every bit of it completely. We don't know anything other than this moment right now, right? And grasping that we've already lived our whole life. Is that an illusion? Or is that real? See? That's a prime example, and this goes a lot deeper, okay? So bear with me on this. I know, fans, you know. But fans is 1 through, or you could say 0, it starts, before we plugged it in, then 1, it starts to spin at 1, and 2, it starts to go faster, you know, all the way it's spiraling, and it's going 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, it starts to spin at 1, and 2, it starts to go faster, you know, all the way it's spiraling, and it's going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and it's just spiraling until it stops again and it ends back at 12. Full spiral, slows down, you know, and that's literally why that value is what it's called. What we pronounce in vibrations as words is that is a fan. And it cools us down because it's pushing an inertia from the centrifugal magnetism point through electricity. Yes, the electricity causes the fan blades to move. There's normally 5 blades, normally I'd say. And it has to push that ether, that nothingness out of the way. And I'm going to get into nothingness because you got to think about something. How do you explain what nothingness is? So when you say someone is an archon, that someone is displaying anything other than what you see within yourself, your own actions, your 2 hands. So often what we see is we somehow have put our responsibility of how our reality is. We can choose to do things because we're the number 1. We're 1 through 9 all through life. So then when we have responsibility, quote unquote, of another, we think we have power over someone. It could be our children, grandchildren, in this case granddaughter. However, in this matrix reality, we are not supposed to have any ideology or concept, perception of controlling another living soul. It doesn't work anywhere in this entire matrix. That's why you have to let it go. That's why I don't have a girlfriend. I don't objectify with these labels like wife, which is a contract written in archonic paper that says if everything works out, it's all good, they're married. In fact, in some laws, if you're married and someone cheats in the relationship, they can go to court and hold that against them in court, right? If you cheat, you can actually be sentenced and, alimony, splitting half of your earnings and your material stuff, when you split up. Right? Is nothingness alive? Is it really there? So this ties in with illusion. Illusion. I-U-S-I-on. I-on, S, ill. I'm ill in the ion. Ions are things that are made up like particles, molecules. Like we could say this big, let's just narrow it down to just this black hole. We're walking through a bunch of black holes every day. And basically it's a canvas of whatever we are today. We could be at the grocery mart, we could be at the gas station, we could be sitting in our living room, right? And it's this black nothingness that's holding these molecules together we know as light particles. And that's what your reality is, right? But if it's just light particles, how much of it's actually real? How much of it's actually illusion?
permittivity. Glass is a capacitor and not just an isolator as well. Okay? It's a capacitor. Science cannot and will not be able to explain what I just stated about all of this. The ether is everywhere. It's the black sun, black hole sun, the dark sun. Okay? It's an invisible crystalline sun. You see, the celestial sphere is building up this electromagnetic ether, creating a dielectric acceleration, which in turn creates this illumination process we know as light. That is what's creating your universe. Your brain is processing red, blue, green colors through this entire process that you're subconsciously, in your higher self, manifesting every millisecond, every moment, which again is branched into the fourth dimension. This is why in a third dimensional English expression, I'm very lucky that I'm even able to get this close to defining something so complex as the fifth dimension, which from there goes into infinite dimensions. You could go to the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, and you were literally, there's a dimension with outside of another dimension. So in a sense, we are the third dimension and we're being held up by a fourth dimension, which many confuses as time and space, which in itself are two different separate things, as you can see why, but I won't get into that, or the fifth dimension, as literally no one can actually express those things properly in English. It's something you have to know by understanding. It's a spiritual enlightenment and experience. So the ether is anywhere and everywhere, and it's nowhere. Okay? It's nothing. It creates everything, and it is the medium in and within itself. Okay? Medium in and within itself. As so within is so without. As is above is below. It literally, describes all of your reality, this existence. As is above is below. The celestial sphere above is actually inside the earth. We're in the earth walking on the spinning light. That big black ball is the ether. And we cannot go into it yet, unless you're in spirit form. So within, so without. Without the inner ether, you would not be living your day-to-day materialistic conscious life. You are processing as a reality that is much more real than it is literal. Okay? All life, this all comes from the black sun. We're not to speak of. And so they write it off as esoteric, and occultists pick up this and control the whole world with its, what Hitler called, vril energy, and even had secret vril societies, and even the most powerful of all, the Illuminati, were called the Order of the Black Sun Occult, not the Illuminati. Okay, so your big controllers of this universe are in control because they know that what you subconsciously visualize and connect with through this ether, you can manifest even world domination of the Matrix. For a living soul, is that possible, however? Because you're the one creating this whole thing. You, in particular, are much more precious and special than the Archon Shadow Reflection individuals that you made, colleagues, your Archon Shadow Reflection, AI soulless beings. These light beings that you're creating will always be the inversion trying to tell you, be humble, you're not that special, you're not God, you're not beyond God. When in fact, yes, you are the one actually processing and creating every moment of your life. If you had no brain outside of that brain, do you know all this stuff is going on? You will never be able to prove this, okay? You are much more special and capable, a miracle, powerful than you could ever imagine. And we have proof of this through what's known as rates of induction, okay? So these are some things, go look up. Rate of induction, look up retroduction, okay? Like I said, capacitance, permeability, resistance, and permittivity. Go look these things up, research them, if you care at all to know where you come from, what this is going and doing, what is being real, being life, going with the flow, follow your heart. There's only one field. There's only one field, meaning there is no duality. There's not two sides of a pole, okay? It's one singularity. Nothing in nature is duality. It's all singularity. The rate of induction is coming from one source, one field. Therefore, there's one black sun creating this sun we think is so big and mighty. It's not. The light bearer, what's known as Lucifer, Louis, Lilith, we see in the sky with diamonds holding all the stars in place. that black sun in the inner Earth, which we see as above, is actually below. If you go to the North Pole, you can get into the singular fifth dimension, which is the thing, the heart, center of this Earth, which is processing all that you know as quote-unquote reality. Yes, there have been programs, parasitic energies, that have altered your conscious state, making this more materialistic and need money. The material, what's the matter? The matrix, Mother Earth, Gaia, Elohim, right? Luna Marie, Eve, money, my one eye. Mother Marie, Eve, the moon goddess, is money, moonbox. That's what you're chasing, so you can gain what? Power. Saturn. Power, control in the matrix. You have power if you have money. The bull, the two horns, is the moon and Saturn. It's the measurement of time and space. They are the fourth dimension. They are the hypercube. Okay, these words like Satan and Saturnalia and different names are just man-made synchronisms or astrotheology throughout time used to keep the other archons enslaved in fear of their almighty power. Yes, Yahweh, Elohim, Allah, Yahuwah, Yahweh, Yahweh, whatever. That is all Saturn. That's Satan. Okay? It is the controller of the prince of the airways, right? But Lucifer, Lucy, Lilith, Sophia, she is the architect. She is one thing, and always has been, the black sun. Okay? They hide God in plain sight. That is God. Okay? So, what is this thing that they call gravity, you know? Or neutrons and electrons, see? Okay, so if we know the rate of induction, since there's only one field, therefore, there cannot be, what is this? Neutrons and electrons, they truly don't exist, but they are all one set of protons doing 2 or 3 different things, depending on what it is. If they wanted to call this anything, then you could call that protons. But that's actually the rate of induction. So what everyone calls gravity is actually a misunderstanding of electromagnetism, which is when the dielectricity, like the sun is a dielectric energy, before it creates the illumination and builds electricity, or light that you see that creates all, it turns on the light bulb, right? That process is known as electromagnetism. That's what holds everything together, and that only comes when the sun and the black sun are literally one rate of induction with each other. Okay? I know this sounds so crazy, and it's beyond a lot of people's mind, but if you can't understand or understand counter space, the ether, or black sun, then you're going to be completely lost into this, and it will come off as a bunch of gibberish to your brain, a bunch of scrambled eggs, if you will. So if your premise is that light is something that is propagating, or can be measured, the speed of light traveling at some speed of light rate, then you cannot ever understand anything I just said. Wise up. Thank you for watching. That is my description of light. Illumination. Yo, what you living so, bro? Plott. And I'm here just to encourage to download this Anchor app from our Archons live in the virtual matrix. And I just want to say that there's...
And light doesn't travel. Light is a rate of induction. There's no such thing as a speed of light. Everything in the universe is permeability, permittivity, capacitance, and resistance. Why the hell do you think light slows down when it enters glass? You're insane as the rest of humanity, which is basically everybody. When you say everybody's insane, then you're not insulting anybody specifically, you're insulting the entire lot of humanity, but that's okay, because we think we're so smart because we have computers, and, obviously we're advanced. Every epoch of human history has always thought that, their shit was advanced. You can't tell on a normal sized magnet. It's not magnetism, that's actually the dielectric portal. So this fly will spin and spin. However, I'm not touching the axle wheel. If I bring it over here to the centrifugal edge, you could probably hear it. I could feel it, and of course you can't feel it. But the flywheel, which I got markings on the flywheel, I'm not touching the axle. The flywheel spins down drastically, very, very quickly. It'd still be spinning at that same high rate if it were sitting at the center here. So what do you think the answer is? Everybody says, and if you ask any scientist, they'll say, well, this is a really large monster magnet. Yes, very expensive, dangerous. It'll actually cut your fingers off if you get your fingers caught between this and like a refrigerator door or something, or a steel door. Which you gotta be really careful with. Try not to get my phone too darn close. So, this is magnetism right here, yes, so that's the center of the magnet. And it should be the same here as it is here. Well, it's not. In physics or quantum. I recently had a person ask a scientist buddy of his that's a PhD professor of physics and ask him to define what a field is itself, and he literally told me the guy's brain imploded. And his brain imploded, and then he paused like someone had, you know, his record in his brain was skipping, you know, had a record skips. I thought that was... First, I'd actually like to point out this deranged moron. He's Richard Feynman, or as I call him, Tricky Dicky. Even though he was an abysmal fool, and he wrote the book QED Strange Theory of Light and Matter. This idiot right here is dead, by the way, now. He actually said that what was going on between magnets was virtual photons. I might remind you that that's, of course, crazy-ass atomism. It has no basis in reality. And virtual photons, which is like saying unicorns, have never been the input or output of any experiment ever done. This Gilbert Lewis is the idiot that actually came up with the term photon. But this is from the moron Einstein. By the way, Nikola Tesla called Einstein a fuzzy-haired crackpot, a lunatic, a beggar dressed in the purple robes of a king, meaning he was an intellectual fraud. Those are Nikola Tesla's words on Einstein. By the way, Tesla gave us the entirety of the modern electrical world, essentially. Him and Charles Brodie Steinmetz and others who perfected it, of course, but Einstein didn't give us anything. No, he literally gave us nothing. He gave us a refrigerator invention, but by the way, the word Einstein means one stone in German, and one stone is slang for idiot or moron, just in case you wanted to know. This is Einstein about the wave-particle duality, and of course there's no such thing as a duality. There's no duality in nature. Duality means inherent contradiction, and nature has no inherent contradictions. A wave is not a thing, rather what a thing does. And light sure as hell is not a particle. So there's no such thing as a wave-particle duality. All three of those words are contradictory BS. And they were always proven wrong. You know, the ancient Egyptians thought they were advanced, and they were in many, many respects, obviously. The ancient Greeks, I translate ancient Greek, I mean, a lot more advanced than most humans are today. The Platonists, anyway. Not just Greeks in general, but specifically the Platonists and Neoplatonists. Insanely intelligent. Very intellectually advanced. If we're going to try to explain the double slit experiment, we first have to explain light. Light is a coaxial circuit, has a longitudinal dielectric pulse perturbation, which modern humanity believes is a photon, and then we think we have waves. We have electromagnetic waves. You know, light is EM waves. A wave is not what something is, goddammit. A wave is what something does. This is a wave. You see this? No, that's my goddamn hand flapping. No, that's a wave. You're waving goodbye or hello. Aloha! Do svidanya! No, that's not a wave. That's my goddamn hand. Well, it's not. Right? It's absolutely not. The actual field that surrounds this is toroidal, and this would be the outermost river right here, and this is an intermediate zone. And right here is not magnetism. Why, sure it is. Right here is exactly the same as right around here. There's no difference. Oh, yes. Yes, there is. Let's take this little ferrite magnet, and it's hard to actually keep it in the center because the induction of the field, keep it dead center. It will stay there if I keep it dead center, but if I give it just a little bit of push, it'll go right there. Now, if you think this is the same as this, and this is a monster magnet, and there's a magnetic field around it, you're half right, and you're ultimately wrong. So, why does this ferrite magnet, doesn't matter if it's a ferrite or a neodymium, why is it nearly impossible to keep it right here? Why does it want to jump to the periphery? If we actually think of flow, since magnetism is centrifugal divergence, the centrifugal divergence, where the highest flow is right here at the edge. It's kind of like if you had an invisible waterfall, right? And this was the waterfall. Instead of it flowing over the edge like a waterfall would, it's actually flowing off of the edge. The toroidal field, the donut shape, the toroidal field. That means the maximum flow rate is right here along the edge of the toroidal donut. And at the center of the donut, just like the center of a tornado and the center of a hurricane, the calm of the storm where you have like 250 mile an hour winds, but if the eye of the hurricane passes over top of you, you know, there's this beautiful clear, there's no wind blowing, the sky is blue, and the birds are chirping. Yeah, exactly like the center of the hurricane. So what's in a hurricane? If you're in the middle of a hurricane, it's really, really bad because, you know, the winds in this hurricane are clocked at 250 miles per hour, for example. Yeah, but we're in the center of the hurricane, and I'm calling you on my phone, and the skies are blue, and the wind isn't moving at all. Why, that's impossible. You can't be in the middle of a hurricane. You're a liar. No, I'm in the middle of the hurricane. Well, that makes no sense. I mean, if you're in the middle of a hurricane, it should be where it's the worst. The same, now you and I know, as well as anybody with a half a brain, knows that the center of a hurricane, and I've been in the center of a hurricane before, decades ago in Daytona Beach, and it was a horrible hurricane. And when the eye of the hurricane came over top of Daytona Beach, where I was at, on South Nova Road, it was clear and beautiful and nice and sunny. It was calm. It was a gorgeous day. But, you know, wait for it. The eye, of course, moved. This is exactly like the eye of the hurricane. Well, a hurricane's really high winds and it's dangerous. Yes, it is.
It seems as though we must rule sometimes that one theory and sometimes the other, while at times we may use either pertaining to light. We are faced with a new kind of difficulty. We have two contradictory pictures of reality, of light. Separately, neither one of them fully explains the phenomena of light, but together they do, meaning wave and particle. This is what the idiot Einstein called das Liquid, what he called the light quantum. Quantum, of course, what you don't understand, and this is the big secret of where this cult of atomistic bullshit came from, is that modern scientists are not scientists in the sense of truth seekers. What they are is mathematicians. And the one thing that pisses off a mathematician more than anything else is the inability to count something. It doesn't exist, nor can it be of any importance if you can't count it. And of course, light is ultimately super important. So the scientists who are not scientists, rather a mathematician, had to quantize light. They had to particleize it. This is where the ancient Greeks destroyed atomism thousands of years ago, but it's made a resurgent in the minds of these mental midget asshole scientists that we think are smart, but in fact are mathematicians. You know, they think that nature is full of dualities and inherent contradictions and crazy bullshit. They come up, these are the idiots, they say, it's important to realize in physics today we have no knowledge of what energy is. Well, he's right on that one.
You think that light is a wave? Let me repeat that because people don't understand that. A wave is not what something is, a wave is what something does. A wave, people say waves is waves. I go, waves of what, goddammit? Waves of what? If you think that this perfectly sealed, and there is a little bit of argon pumped in here, there are some bulbs that are completely, well, nearly, that perfect vacuum is basically impossible. You can never suck the ether out of anything, though, right? Oh, the ether was disproven by the Michelson-Morley experiment. No, it wasn't. That doesn't even qualify as an experiment, actually. If you think that this light bulb, when you plug it in, an electrical charge is sent through the coiled tungsten wire that sits between the two prongs, then you're delusional. I turn on the light bulb, emits light. No, what happens is that in very, very, very simple terms, there's like a little human being inside there flapping his arms, creating a field perturbation in the form of generic white. Of course, it depends on the Kelvin. White light doesn't really mean anything. We can call a lot of stuff white light. They're completely, it could be fluorescent, incandescent, what sunlight, they're all different Kelvin temperatures. We don't get into that talk right now. That's kind of obvious. A field perturbation. This doesn't emit light, it sets up a field perturbation through the use of electricity. Electricity, by the way, is phi times I, Q in a Planck of electrification. What do you think light is? So we first have to define light and realize, if we're going to explain, by the way, and if you were to really realize what the hell light is, you would understand what the double slit experiment or paradox. To most people it's a paradox. I don't understand the double slit experiment. Well, I proved to you that you can get the exact, let's just pretend this is a needle. I made videos on this already, months and months and months ago. Get the exact same results by hitting a tiny, thin, little sharp needle. Right? Not the eye of the needle, okay? Just the needle body. You get the exact same results, pointing it at a needle. It'll show perfect interference by exactly the same thing as a double slit experiment on the wall. People don't understand phase shift. When you actually set up a spatial variance, and then you have, of course, you understand how light works. How does light go around corners? That's another mystery that science never solved. You'll never find an answer to that. It's like if you shoot a light down a really long tube, you'll notice at the edges it flares out. You'll find a lot of nonsense hyperbole about that. If you understand that light is not something that's traveling, okay? We think of light as like, tiny little unicorns being emitted. That's how stupid modern science is, it really is that stupid. Tiny little unicorns being emitted from this light bulb, and they're going out and they're like going through the double slits. No, there's nothing actually traveling through the double slit. There's nothing traveling out of a light bulb. It's a field perturbation.
You think that nature is full of dualities and inherent contradictions and crazy bullshit. They come up, these are the idiots. Let me say, it's important to realize in physics today we have no knowledge of what energy is. Well, he's right on that one.
Extrapolates out the interior geometry of a toroid. Yeah. This is not magnetism. If you were standing in the middle of a hurricane and you didn't know, you were transported there by magical means, and you said you were in the middle of a Category 5 hurricane that has winds of 300 miles an hour, it's like, you're full of crap. You're full of it. No. The skies are calm, the birds are chirping. There's no wind. No. You were in the middle of a Category 5 hurricane. You were dead smack in the middle. Oh, I'm in the eye of the hurricane. Yeah? You are in the eye of the hurricane, but are you in what defines a hurricane? The center of this magnet, well, this is a really powerful monster magnet. There's nobody on Earth that's going to deny that. Not a single physicist, not a single scientist. Well, what about what's right here in the middle? Isn't this magnetism? No, this is not magnetism right here. This is increasing inertia and acceleration towards the plane of inertia. This, out here, this is magnetism. Must suffer a maximum rate of induction, which is the speed of light. But it's not a speed, it's a rate of induction. However, along the center part of that EMR, we have a longitudinal circuit which does not suffer that. We have a pulse perturbation which... And this gets then explaining the wave-particle duality. And it's not a duality at all, because a duality, the word duality, I'm going to define the word duality for you really simply here. Duality means something that stupid human beings don't understand. Because there's absolutely nothing in the purest parts of fundamental nature and field mechanics that has any connection to a duality. Nature does not deal in duality. That's like saying Mother Nature has got her hand out in friendship on one hand, and on the other hand she's got a knife ready to stab you in the back. And that's the duality. She's both friendly and a murderer. Well, that's kind of true. It's like birth, old age, and death, right? That's something else. Mother Nature doesn't deal in duality. Now let's imagine a coaxial circuit. Let's just take the center conductor. Well, the center conductor has no spatial volume, therefore it must have instantaneous action at a distance. That's true. This is why dielectric impulses have been measured to travel, and they don't travel at all. It's a rate of induction, infinitely faster than the so-called speed of light. Eric Dollar talks about this, worked in electrical systems, and Nikola Tesla talked about it too. I mean, the speed of light is not a maximum, it's not a limit, it's a rate of induction. And if you eliminate, the transverse components of
this is
light,
magnetism.
of course you don't
This
have
is where this weak ferrite neodymium goes to. Just like a waterfall, right? The maximum pressure where the actual ball is dragged towards the edge, yeah, and wants to stay. That is where magnetism is. This is not magnetism. Now, I know I repeated myself in this video quite a few times, and there's a reason for that. Yeah, there's a reason behind it. Anyway, I hope I kind of made this simple. Thanks so much for watching. If you like these videos, always check out the link below. Let me know if you got any questions. I think I kept this very simple. I think I did. I'm always trying to simplify things, okay? Thanks for watching. Goodbye.
And then, of course, you don't have an EMR, you don't have electromagnetic radiation. You're able to travel faster than the speed of light. Let's just demonstrate this here. Preferably, I'd want to use something solid like this, okay? Anything that happens on one side instantaneously happens on another, right? Same thing with a piece of rope, right? Any sort of pull or tug on one end or the other, that's a longitudinal. That's the coaxial, the center conductor of light, of EMR, okay? What about the transverse vibrations of light, EMR? Well, it's not instantaneous. And here we have the rate of induction, or the so-called speed. So, instead of this number, what if I do this? Well, there's a delay. If I start something here, it doesn't hit until over there with a delay, right? Instantaneous, delay, right? Delay, delay,
and without. When we ignore this oneness, we perceive our world and thus our experiences as monstrous or involving a hidden hand that wishes to create suffering. You reside in you, and because the absolute reality absolutely reflects your entire being in each moment, your suffering is always instilled and resolved by you yourself. Ultimately, we find that the only monsters which ever blockaded our path to divinity were within. It was I myself who was a monster. The more unresolved you are within, the more pronounced an external monster will appear. And these external threats, whether they appear in the form of a dangerous government plan to corrupt a population, or an abusive family member, or an oppressive job salary, they're all direct translations of your unwillingness to unlock coherence. We're talking about translating the outer in your subjective experience. Coherence is oneness. It is the quality of forming a unified whole. To say in another way, the deepest depths of yourself contain the remedy for all illusion. The monsters that we have witnessed have really been mentors. That's why the word monster is a direct anagram for mentors. What we've seen on this earth stage has been falsely branded as dark or light, positive or negative, good or bad, when really all of this contrast reflects movements of energies flowing into one another until the experience of opposition threads together to fully reveal the oneness beneath it all, the coherence. During this process of consolidation, we're being called to individually illuminate ourselves and resolve this inner opposition, so our brokenness can reverse itself back into the original design of harmony. And harmony isn't
instantaneous, delay, delay, delay. Let's see. So anything that partakes of a transverse perturbation, i.e. electricity and magnetism. And electricity is a hybrid, because electricity is phi times psi equals Q in plane electrification. It's dielectricity and magnetism. This is how electromagnet works too. Electricity doesn't turn into magnetism. Electricity actually drives an electromagnet through the loss of its dielectric component. Then the only thing that's left is magnetism. You feed enormous amounts of electricity into a coil, let's say a large electromagnet on a scrapyard. Electricity doesn't turn into magnetism. It doesn't induce a magnetic charge. What happens is that electricity loses its dielectric component, which is lost in counter space, in the coil, and what is left is what happens when you dump an enormous amount of dielectricity. See, if electricity is dielectricity and magnetism, that means once you dump out the dielectric component of electricity, the only thing you're left with is enormous amounts of magnetism. That's how an electromagnet works, by the way. The so-called speed of light is a rate of induction. Then you have to understand, pay attention, got it? Pay attention. You have to understand what a coaxial circuit, you know what a coax cable is? Used to be a ham radio operator. Still kind of am a ham radio operator. You have to understand what a coax cable is, okay? We have a longitudinal core, we have a core right here, and on the outside we have a mesh, right? The actual EM signal bounces around the mesh for lowest signal loss in decibels, in gain. Now we have a coaxial center core. Okay, now let's describe a rate of propagation. We have to then define what light is, or all EMR, electromagnetic radiation, which is not electromagnetic by definition, is a coaxial circuit. Because this is where the notion of the photon came from. Along that center conductor of the coax, or coax analogy, which is exactly what light is, it's a coaxial circuit, we come up with the notion of a photon. No, it's a pulse perturbation. This is what modern science and quantum mechanics thinks of photons. If this is a lot larger rope, I'd be able to compress it better. If I actually you can see it right there. If I compress it right here, I create this fat, kind of like my stomach, right? I need some thicker rope, but you've seen it before. Like bunch up the rope here in the center, you see it's really fat right there in the center, right? That's where science got the idea of the photon. Well, some of that light's kind of like a particle, and sometimes it's like a wave, and it's kind of like both. It's like a total quantum mystery. No, it's not. It's not. And here we also get into the conundrum of anything that has transverse volume, whether it's circular polarization or linear polarization, it doesn't matter. The electromagnetic component or constituents of light and EMR in general have a spatial footprint, a volume. Obviously, something that has no, let's say, for example, imagine something that is infinitely slim, right? It has absolutely no volume. It wouldn't cast a shadow, would it? No, it wouldn't. EM casts a shadow, if you will, in the analogy of the emission of light. Therefore, it has a rate of induction. Anything that actually has a spatial volume, specifically anything that has magnitude, has therefore a limit, and that limit is its rate of induction, which is what we call the speed of light. But it's not a speed at all, it's a rate of induction. It means that anything that has a magnitudinal volume at any frequency or any wavelength, whether it's circular polarization or linear polarization, must suffer a maximum rate of induction, which is, yes, that's something else people also don't understand. You need an enormous amount of electricity, you lose this dielectric component, the only thing you're left with is magnetism.
Gilbert and Lewis coined the term photon as the smallest unit of radiant energy. Actually, the outcome of his letter to Nature magazine was not what he had intended. In the letter, this is in 1926, he had proposed the photon being a structural element, not energy. He insisted that on the need for a new variable, the number of photons. This guy's a mathematician. Now, although his theory differed from the quantum theory of light introduced by Albert Einstein in 1905, his name was adopted for what Einstein had called das Lichtquant, or the light quantum. Everything in quantum, and they say this themselves, is based upon an understanding of light, but not a single branch of theoretical physics, nor these idiot assholes in quantum, have ever accurately or even come close to accurately defining light. And there are no paradoxes in Mother Nature. I mean, they even believe that bullshit is nonsense. Let me give you a quote about what, of course they say that magnetism is virtual photons or virtual particles, which is just craziness. It's like saying unicorns. Let me give you a direct quote from the scumbag Richard Feynman, who actually forwarded this virtual particle BS in his own books. Here we go. A virtual particle is an abstraction which facilitates in calculations and understanding. The term is very vague and loosely defined, and they never appear as the inputs or outputs of any experiments. Their existence is questionable at best. However, they are very useful in rendering concepts and making equations balance out. Here we again get into math, the equations. You see, these people can't calculate fields. Everything is fields, and fields are not particles. If you can't count the shit, then it's hard to do math for the shit. Ultimately, that's the irreducible truth about things. If you can't count the crap, then you can't do math on the crap. That's kind of profane, but that's really as reducible as it gets.
explaining the wave-particle duality, which is not a duality at all, nor is it confusing, nor is it perplexing, stems from the fact that humanity and science, so to say, science is a quest for truth, but science is not on the quest for truth. It's on the quest for peer-reviewed, mutual circle jerking. All these people do is get together and they try to agree on something. The holistic quest for truth has been lost ages and ages ago. You'd first have to define what the hell light is. And nobody knows what light is. So when you talk about the double slit experiment and the wave-particle duality, human beings don't even understand what light is. There is no book on science that has ever defined what the hell a field is. Ever. It's never happened. Go find the definition of a field. Everything is fields, and fields are not particles. We think things emit light. Nothing emits light. It's a field perturbation. Do you know what wireless power induction is? I mean, that shit's as real as a heart attack. Let's go out into the deepest, darkest parts of space where there are no particles. Well, actually, there are little hydrogen particles floating around. And, let's power a light bulb through a coiled array that is pointed at it like a Yagi antenna, which is a directional power induction, and light up this light bulb. You ever get in the fluorescent tube close to a Tesla coil? You know how it lights up? Well, there's nothing existing between the Tesla coil and... Sure there is, there's a field. Really? And what the hell is a field? A field is not particles. What the hell is lighting the light bulb? Well, it's a field perturbation, Maxwellian field equation. None of the Maxwellian field equations ever define what a field is. They only explain effects over a given vector, extrapolated in change over a specific period of time. Maxwellian field equations in no way, shape, or form ever define a field. Humanity as A never defined a field, god damn it, and secondly, never defined what the hell light is. Light both is not a particle. Well, sure, light is electromagnetism. It's a wave and a particle. This is a wave. No, it's not. It's my goddamn hand. That's a wave. No, a wave isn't what something is. It's what something... So light is not a wave, because a wave is not something. A wave is what something does. Wave! This is a wave. No, it's your hand flapping. No, well, it's a photon. The construct, and it's only that, a construct, it's a concept invented by humanity to try to understand light. The notion of a photon particle is absolutely 100% arbitrary and has no basis in reality, has no basis in nature, and it has no empirical evidence whatsoever. There has never been any such thing as a photon particle, ever observed, ever. It's absolute nonsense, it's bullshit. If you believe that, then after the end of day of shooting with your camera, you should take the lens off and dump out all those photon particles, because your camera must be full of those goddamn photon particles, right? Humanity is not as smart as it thinks it is. Humanity has never defined what light is, nor what a field is. Until it does, it's sure as hell never going to explain the double slit experiment. And Mother Nature does not deal in dualities. There are no dualities in nature, not the real nature. That's the bullshit that came out of the mouths of stupid humanity. And yes, I said it, humanity is stupid. And it always has been stupid. As long as it progresses, that's okay. It's okay to be stupid as long as you don't think you know the answer to shit. It's like, I'm stupid, but I want to know the answers to stuff. Because I can guarantee you this much right now. Anybody that thinks they know the answers to shit never goes looking for the answers to that. Because if you think you know the answer, then you don't go looking for the answer. I know the answer to that. It's like, no, you don't. Yeah, I do. That's why I'm not looking for the answer to it, because I already know the answer. And when you think you know the answer, but you really don't, that makes you an idiot. It makes the rest of humanity an idiot, too. It's just like a pig with its head buried in the muck. Anyway, thanks for watching. Catch you later. If you like this video, drop a buck or two. Tell me to jump off a cliff. Whatever makes you happy. Bye.
Every bit of it, completely. We don't know anything other than this moment, right now, right? And grasping that we've already lived our whole life. But we're starting over, fresh, brand new. And we know nothing. We unlearned absolutely everything. If you could just imagine what that even would feel like or look like a brand new baby, but you're in the middle of your age, you're in your prime, 30, 40, however old you want to feel you are. And then, so we're in that, and we come back to Earth. None of this stuff actually matters, right? Just follow me here on this part. So, if nothing matters in this concept of reality here, then what are you doing here? What is that? What are you here for? See, if I told you have no obligations, no expectations, you could say, what is your purpose, right? But then I even say, go further, more deeper, that there is no purpose, right? Like there's no one has come up to you, you haven't decided for yourself, what is it I want to do? Do I want to destroy this planet? Do I want to destroy myself? Do I want to live each day content like the next and just survive, thrive? What am I doing here? And that's where I got in my head. It was actually very hard for me to step back and just grasp this nothingness. I was born yesterday. I know everything I know right now. And here I'm in this prairie with daisies, flowers. Let's go back there. What are you doing there? Who are you? Are you God? What is God? Again, that's another word. Let's throw that out. It goes even beyond that, doesn't it? You're the one who's creating this whole thing. And we put it as a title, reality, which is just such a vague describer, a description, a title, a label. What is this? Even after all the emotions, the experiences, the memories, the energies, what is that? Why did you create that? Did you create that? I know I created whatever it is I see and I experience, and that's all I know. So whatever I know, and then I'm just going to blank stare. I don't know any words to describe this, but I'm going to go back to that prairie and I'm looking at nothing. So then you got to ask yourself, blank stare, brain dead, you don't know anything to think, you have no thoughts. What are you fucking doing there? What is that? Think about that. Really, I mean, let that sink in and really think for a moment. What are you doing here? You know all there is to know, which is you don't need to know anything. You unlearned everything, you already lived your life, you started over, you're fresh, you were born yesterday. None of this matters. So what are you doing here? What is this? Half of your earnings and your material stuff, you know, when you split up, right? Having to pay for the children, the woman being the caregiver, getting money from the masculine male caregiver has to pay money. So that's a whole other topic. I completely know, but it all ties together. Because when you say behaviors, exercises these behaviors or practices these behaviors, it's just like having a dog or a bird. In this case, I have a bird in a cage. It's a lot like us, if you think about it. How can we be pet owners? It sounds crazy, but I have a lot of friends who work with pets. I actually am the formulator of Golden Leash pet products. That Moringa product is online. I formulated it, and it's the shaker and all that for cats, birds, and dogs. And just the idea that I was the formulator for it, knowing that I don't really agree with the idea of putting a dog or cat, even a bird, in a cage or in a boxed in setting, like behind a fence, what have you. But then my concept of this evolved even deeper. My realization, reality, wasn't a perception any longer. That a perception is what someone else tells you about something. Well, from what I can tell, the dog may not know or be smart enough to realize that it's locked in a fence or a cage. Same with the bird. And eventually that may be all they know. They've been put in a bubble. They've been, some people can say, sanitized or kept from their own nature, let's just say. And they even go as far to like
cut a bird's wing so they can't fly away, neuter or spade a dog so it can't procreate, or it's not as aggressive because it wants to naturally do that. So what we see, this is it. This is the grand conclusion of the reality that I see. My intuition is telling me this, that without even thinking about it, I know that there's this going on because I had this same struggle with my upbringing as abusive. Why was that? Because I was a wild child, independent and free. I've always been like that. And we lived in a time where that was it seemed under your parents' care, they have to go and teach you the law, teach you how to be a law-abiding citizen, a good person, blah, blah, blah. That's your quote-unquote parents' role, right? So in a sense, this matrix is down passing a baton, and the parents have to pass that down, what they learned from the matrix, down to their children, quote-unquote, the offspring. That's the offspring, because it's the offset of you, spring, right? So you're the onspring, right? You're a product of your mother or father, or both, and end up having eventually one day maybe grandchildren. So what I'm getting at in the whole matrix, I could just said this, that they are having this tension pull them apart from what they naturally feel is right. Freedom, that independence. They want to be creative and in this evolve naturally to their own intelligence. It says, I want the Reese's Pieces, damn it. And by any means, this is what they want. That's their true intent. Could you say, well, if I give my child everything they want, they're going to be a spoiled brat, they're going to get aggressive, if they don't get it, they're going to get angry. So these are behaviors we see, and they're in all of us. If we don't get our way, we don't get a job, we don't get money, things like that. It's everything that's the illusionary matrix 248 reality, which I could break all that down here in a minute. The number is 1 through 9. It's crucial. Everything is 3, 6, and 9 is natural life flowing like a river. It's all life. Anything that's the counter or off is the 2, 4, and 8 to that 3, 6, and 9. You're number 1, and you're also 9, the completed version of yourself, and then now 1. You have a peak or climax, that's 6. So in this moment, your child, your granddaughter, your own daughter, however you want to look at it, these are all, again, labels, words, titles, right? So let's take those titles and labels away. What do you see happening with your significant other, this little version of yourself? Because each daughter is actually a little version of yourself. Genetically, every such way, that's the reality. And the splice of DNA between the male and the female, becoming one, is the miracle of life. The Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. That's the black sun, the sun, and Saturn. The black sun connect and make the sun, or electricity. So what that is dielectric. Electric is a result from dielectric and then magnetism. Black sun is magnetism, or the divine feminine. The sacred masculine is the dielectric, which is like before it becomes electric. So put those two together, magnetism and before electricity, it equals dielectric magnetism, dielectric acceleration, which is centrifugal inertia. Just a simple way of saying electricity. That's the sun, the soul, that's the fire. Your granddaughter is like the fire. She's the sun. She's the creation. So when she doesn't get her way, quote unquote, it's like Matrix is coming down on her, telling her something that goes against her reality. She knows she's the goddess and she should have it her way. Believe it or not, she knows. So the closer you get to that, like you said, a baby is the pure soul in its fullest form. It knows what it is. It's the divine essence of all life, a miracle, right? And as it grows older, it becomes a toddler, it develops, it evolves, it starts to walk. as it walks, it can then sprint, jog, jump, and begin to form sentences together. This is where it ends up cursed. Believe it or not, the child, the miracle angel, the goddess or god that it really is, begins to develop that it's different, that it has a barrier, or we need to cut these creative wings, if you will, off of its imagination, that it's no longer as special. It's just like every other boy and girl in the room. We're all the same. Well, of course we're all the same. We don't need to be told that. We don't even need to be taught that. In our natural state, in our own natural form, we know that. They know that. We're all one. We're never alone. So the beauty of this is that it's not a behavior that we can analyze and say what's wrong, but it's actually an issue between, this is a matrix ordeal, and where our environment is in this soulless matrix demiurge, this conscious materialized world, the houses, the cars, the roads, the jobs, the enslavement of going to school, education system, preschool, first grade all the way up to 12th grade. If you want to continue in this matrix and make money so you'll be happy and your kids will get everything they want, then you need to get a career, go to college, you need to meet this girl of your dreams. You don't care who it is, as long as you financially are on the same caste system, you meet up with the same expectations and on the same caliber, then you can go with that individual. If you find her sexy, he's cute, we like each other, there's that spark, we then quote unquote fall in love, but really at the moment it was just it was a sexual connection. We both magnetized, gravitized to each other, creating this electric energy that now manifested from a seed being sperm fertilized on the seed inside the woman, this black hole that we came from. It grows into another reality, offspring of your spring, and you're the new spring. This creation abound manifests into our reality yet again, which we have another dilemma. This offspring has to interweave with the conscious materialized matrix, and there you have it. That was the beginning of the fall of man, the fall of mankind, the fall of a living soul. We have to learn how to immerse ourselves with this conscious, materialized matrix demiurge. And so when your child hits that wall, like a crash dummy that's being experimented on, it crashes and hits into the wall. It's like these archons are experimenting with you, your daughter, and all of the living souls. We are electric energy. It needs, in the matrix, to take an energy extract your living soul. You are energy. You see that? Your energy, your daughter's energy. So we need to learn how to contain those energies, contain your daughter. She needs to be respectful. She needs to be this way. She needs to be that way. She needs to think like that, talk like this, etiquette like that, be clean, cut her hair. She needs to be a particular way that's different and unnatural than her normal self, right? Her living soul self wants this. So what behavior and attitude that is like this is due to this is the honest truth that you're not going to hear about on Dr. Phil, because Dr. Phil promotes the matrix, right? So imagine that for a moment, okay? Dr. Phil promotes the matrix. So does Oprah, so does everyone. And I love both of them. I even like Dr. Oz. I love all these shows, even Ellen DeGeneres, okay? Whatever. They are personified 100% Decepticons. Decepticons are the authority of how archons should think. See? So, as your living soul, you have to cut or trim your living soul energy and put it into a box shape. This is called squaring the circle. This is what they do with all nature. So by squaring the circle, they have got you to think you need to act or be a particular way through peer pressure, social norms. They call it norma or mores, which is morals. So they form the ideology of what morals are. What are morals?
Well, if you're talking about the matrix, it's an entirely different thing than what your morals, ethics, and nature truly is. What you believe is right should be whatever is right when you follow your heart for that very moment. You can't write a book and say, all right, here's 10 commandments or 88 edicts that say, don't kill, don't steal, don't harm, don't look at this other woman, don't lust after that person, you're married, don't covet, don't want other people's material things. These are all laws of the matrix, but there's hermetic laws which actually supersede those quote-unquote commandments or these material matrix laws. They far supersede anything you're taught to believe. So think about this for a moment. Your reality rules, and they don't want you to realize that. They want you to believe in these commandments, these laws, these rules and regulations, that you have to be obligated to something other than what you naturally feel and intend.
They themselves have not found resolution with all aspects of their being. Coherence, forming a unified whole, finding ease within the mind, the body, the heart, the spirit, and wrapping it all up in a glorious package, letting divinity erect itself through this great work. All creation is finished and ongoing simultaneously. Therefore, it is impossible to desire anything that doesn't already exist in some form or plane. We simply must plug in the intention and the action, the energetics, to allow such forms, such creations to appear. Because of this, do not procrastinate your desire to some other distant point in the future, because you can occupy that state right now. You can choose right now to move into the state of fulfillment. All inner tension calls to us to be examined, experienced, transmuted, thereby healing brokenness to excavate divinity. We've all heard about the pole shift, spoken of in ascensional and doomsday scenarios. The true pole shift has nothing to do with simply a physical manifestation. It is the acceleration of awareness that each member of the 144 undergoes, which culminates into such intense energies within the earth itself that a true pole shift occurs. This is why the phrase true pole shift equals 1044 in English gematria. So the inversion, the pole shift, which will occur when this timeline ends, will be the north and south polarity merging. This is within and without the polar aspects of your being, demonstrated here by the above and below chakras, which merge into the heart, the north polarity. This is the inversion, returning to the true form, the true blueprint. The toroidal field looks just like an hourglass because we've been stuck in time as long as the south polarity has been sustained. We've been out of the throne. The pole shift is the shift of yourself, remembering and creating simultaneously. It is remembering you're a creator and creating the remembrance at the same time, rather than forgetting and experiencing that forgetfulness. You cannot serve two masters or opposing states of consciousness at the same time. This is a truth that must be understood. In this way, you are a divine creator, or you're not. You are the cause of all of your effects, or you're not. You see how that works? You can't claim that You manifest all of your reality and then feel victimized to it. Inner duality always produces an illusion of division. So we must illuminate this illusion to weaken its choke. And you're in luck. Again, the deepest depths of the self contain the remedy for all illusion. By focusing on increasing personal sentience, which is the capacity to feel, perceive, and experience ourselves, we gain access to the Hyperborean spirit and spiritual forces. We start to feel our interconnectedness to the energetic reality of all things, and all things even more. Hyperborea means beyond Boreas. Boreas, also known as Ophion, is the Greek north wind, equivalent to the demiurge of Gnostic and Egyptian myth. The demiurge is not a literal separate figure which bound Sophia to a prison world, as many Gnostic interpretation goes. The demiurge is the aspect of Sophia that trapped wisdom, which is revealed when our own center is finally re-established with the energy that sustained monsters. The same energy which sustains illusion is the same essence that propels divine order. You see how that works? We must make room in our hearts for the unimaginable if we are to exit the cave of limitation, as detailed in Plato's Allegory of the Cave. Plato's Allegory of the Cave tells the story of enchained men in the depths of a cave. All that they see are the shadows of some figures which their guardians are carrying. One day, one of the prisoners manages to escape the cave, reaching the outside, and at first he is blinded by the radiance of the sun. He sees many marvelous things impossible for him to imagine before, and finally understands the truth about his former captivity. He had no idea that he was a prisoner. After some time, he returns to the cave to visit his still imprisoned comrades. He talks to them about the fabulous outside world he has discovered. He tells them that the figures that they're staring at the wall are not real, that they're just shadows, illusions, and explains that they're imprisoned. But they do not believe him, and they think he is absolutely crazy. The cave represents the matrix, this material world. The prisoners are the sleeping masses, and the shadows projected on the wall are the illusions of Maya, the delusions that result from adhering to the common worldview, which ignores the inner in place of blending with the stale fruits of the hyperphysical. Everything we see here, as real as it may seem, it's just a representation, and most conflicts people involve themselves in are shadows. It's like everyone is looking at a wall thinking they're really seeing what their senses tell them. The one who escapes the cave to the outside, to the origin, has become a Siddha, an immortal being, and he returns to the cave to bring the light, the message of truth. In this allegory, if the unchained man decided to stay in the cave to convince his comrades of truth, he himself would remain in that cave. It does no good to convince others of truth, especially those who wish to remain comfortable staring at shadows. Ascension is the ultimate result of an expanding awareness of self and of other, with the merging of our physical bodies with our spiritual bodies. It's fundamental to know These bodies consist of a oneness. They are not distinct, but the physical and spiritual appear separate when we engage in unknowingness. So we must shake hands with the physical if we are to bring matter into spirit and spirit into matter. And this merging of spirit and matter ultimately brings about higher sensory abilities. But as I say this, many of us will perhaps conjure up magical abilities of telepathy, of teleportation, of being able to change appearance at will. And while these abilities do exist in the Hyperborean realm, we are only granted them when we have carried the infinite into the finite, when we have utilized these fleshly avatars as vessels for transformation. Our disconnection to spirit led to the infestation of automated intruder forces in what we call the spirit realm. This would be all dual energies unseen. And Sophia's disconnection to matter led to the infestation of automated intruder forces here in what we call the earthly realm. This would be all dual energies seen. So in order to slip outside the confines of matter, we've aimed to resolve ourselves spiritually, right? To merge back with the fertile ground of wisdom, which is chaos. But in order to slip outside the confines of spirit, Sophia has aimed to resolve herself materially in order to merge back into divine order. So this is how we can conceptualize. Our AI projections have been infesting the above and below, so spirit could work through that within the observable veil of Maya. Ultimately, we find that the only monsters which ever blockaded our path to divinity were within. It was I myself who was a monster, as within, so without. The center land is both on Earth and in a parallel universe, because the gifts of the heart lie within you right now and beyond the visible light spectrum. After all, the ancient Tibetan tradition says that the White Island is the only area that escaped the common fate of all the continents after the disaster. It cannot be destroyed by water nor fire, for it is the eternal earth. This disaster, this pole shift, happened before, and it will happen again, because expansion eats away at all contraction. We've lived within a false reality because we repeat the same experiences over and over again until this observation extinguishes our inner falsity, our inner loops and deficits. Therefore, to exit the matrix, we are called to self-discipline ourselves in all ways. Self-discipline is not self-punishment. It is divinely ordered corrective action designed to enliven us with the development of our own powers. So, let us not be afraid of looking into our own voids, observing what action we can take to heal ourselves, and deep down, you know how to heal yourself. This creation, which has been enchained to time and space, devours itself over and over again in a cyclical process, in what the Hindus call the yugas. One cycle of creation is, according to Hinduism, one respiration of Brahma. After the exhalation of Brahma, there is a period of the great dissolution, And afterwards, everything starts again from the beginning, with a new inhalation of Brahma. The goal of this process is to awaken the sleeping Hyperboreans to escape this cycle, to reach the origin, which is beyond time and space, and therefore beyond death. Self-realization is the fulfillment of one's own potential. It's what we're aiming to achieve, because the focus on personal sentience extends our awareness of higher sensory abilities that laid dormant, like innerstanding and deeply perceiving the consciousness states and experiences of ourselves, and thus of everything. I have a strong knowing that time, along with duality, birth and death, and thus aging, will be no more as we walk this path. Everything has prepared us for a rebirth outside of physical birth. We await the final transmutation through realizing who we are. We are alive. We are alive.
And I just want to say that there's a lot of really cool things about this, as well as it's free, and you can distribute your own podcast, and we can connect. You can leave message, you can leave your message down, and we will have it live on our podcast. So there's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and many more that are coming in the future. You can make money with even listenership. You don't have to have much. It's really easy podcast, all in one. And so I support this. I said download the free Anchor app from the Archons at anchor.fm, like FM radio. All right. And I love you. Divine love.
referred to as the architecture of the universe, and even the fingerprint of God. Sacred geometry is found throughout the natural world. Indeed, it is all around us, an aspect of the true matrix, if you have the eye to see it. It is also one of the very few subjects which appeals to both left brain and right brain ways of thinking at the same time. It satisfies the left brain's desire for logical, sequential, and objective data, or to put it simply, looking at the parts. It also satisfies the right brain's desire for random, intuitive, and subjective data, the study of the whole. It is simply not possible to cover all aspects of sacred geometry. People have spent entire lifetimes contemplating just one aspect of sacred geometry, such as a rabbi studying the Kabbalistic tree of life. I will do my best to introduce you to the basics and hopefully inspire you to research further on your own. The only logical place to start is to show you how nature created its very first pattern. Nature can also be substituted with God or Spirit, whatever is your preferred term, it doesn't matter, as they are describing the same one reality that we all share. It is also interesting to note that Genesis in the Bible essentially describes the process I'm about to show you. However, it should be told that this wisdom was most likely taken from the ancient Egyptian mystery schools, and that it is not original to the Bible. In the beginning there was the void, and within this infinite void is the Spirit of God. This Spirit has not manifested anything yet, so the Eye of Horus I'm using here to represent the Spirit of God is not a reality. In other words, essentially God and the void are one, but obviously I cannot show you God and the void as one, as they cannot be depicted graphically at the same time. That is the nature of emptiness. At this point there are no dimensions or space, and there is no time. There is also only two options available for God: remain in this state of static omnipresence or begin creating. God will begin creation eventually, however, as there is no time, it is irrelevant to ask how long it took to make the decision to begin creating reality. Okay, so now God has decided to begin creation. But before this can happen, God needs to create a canvas on which he is to paint his masterpiece. The first thing that God does is create the 3 dimensions. It does this by projecting a beam of consciousness from a single point in all 6 directions: front, back, left, right, up and down, in equal measure. Bear in mind that the void is infinite and that distance has not been defined yet, so it does not matter how far these beams are projected from the point, it makes no difference. You must also understand that what I'm showing here graphically is not a reality. That is, the structures being created are not material in any form, they are imaginary lines, they are pure consciousness. You may need to pause or replay this video several times before the implications become apparent to you. At this point, God is halfway to creating space. In order to complete this process, it must define some boundaries, because as I mentioned before, the void is infinite, and if no boundaries are defined, then relative movements of spirits remain impossible. To define some boundaries, all God needs to do is connect the end of every point to the end of every other point. The beauty of this, and indeed the entire process itself, is that God cannot make a mistake. It is simply impossible. Once all the ends are connected, what we have is an octahedron, which if viewed from the correct perspective reveals a hexagram, also known as the Star of David. Now that some boundaries have been defined, relative movements are now possible. The single point of consciousness can now move away from the defined central location, whereas previously there was nothing to move relative to. In the Bible, Eve was supposedly created from Adam's rib. Obviously this has no relevance to the present world, except maybe with unnatural fetus creation techniques. But when this story is compared with the next step in the process, you can begin to appreciate the idea that maybe the Bible is only an exoteric recreation of an older esoteric wisdom. The octahedron is made up of purely straight lines. In sacred geometry, straight lines are considered to be male, and curved lines female. So at this point, what we have is a purely male shape. This is why the Freemasons consider the male to be the generating principle. The next step involves spinning this octahedron in one full rotation around each of the 3 axes defined previously. Again, no mistake can be made. It does not matter which direction it is spun, or in what order the axes are chosen. The end result will always be that the parameters of a perfect sphere have been traced. Now we have a purely female shape. Eve has now been created from Adam. God has now created a perfect spherical membrane, and once again, it only has two options available. It can either remain static and explore this imaginary shape for all eternity, or it can repeat the process described thus far. The only difference is now God has a reference point, the spherical membrane, on which to repeat the process. It does not matter where Spirit chooses on the membrane to begin the process, as it is a perfect sphere, thus all points are identical to each other. It cannot make a mistake. At this point, God only knows how to do two things: projecting an octahedron and creating a spherical membrane, and moving its point of awareness to what is newly created. The next step is described in Genesis in the Bible, and thus the next process is commonly referred to as the Genesis pattern. So God moves to the surface of the newly created spherical membrane and begins projecting another identical sphere. God moved upon the face of the waters, and God said, "Let there be light." This has created a very special shape called the vesica piscis. This shape can be found twice in your own body: the appearance of the human eye behind the eyelids, and also the lens within the eye which adjusts the focus of light. The significance of this connection demonstrates both a left brain and a right brain idea, and it certainly shocked me when I was first introduced to it. Once again, God only has two options: remain static or project another sphere. To project the third sphere, God moves to what is newly created, which is this circle equator created by the two original intersecting spheres. Again, it does not matter where God chooses on this circle as the central point for the third sphere, as all points on this circle are identical. After the third sphere is created, there is only one more rule God follows when creating the rest of the spheres which complete the first stage of this pattern. The rule is, always move to the innermost circle points before projecting another sphere. This results in the process being perfect and prevents a chaotic mess being created. At the creation of each new sphere, more and more patterns or information become available, such as the vesica piscis mentioned earlier. The patterns contained within after each new sphere is added is far too extensive to cover in detail. All that remains to be said is after 7 spheres have been created in a vortex-like motion, what we have as a result is known as the seed of life. This basic pattern lays the foundation for the creation of matter and the universe itself. It also gives rise to a shape known as a tube torus if the pattern is spun around the central point. This shape is the only one in existence that can fold upon itself. It is also composed of 7 equal segments which can be displayed visually using the 7 colours of the visible light spectrum. The seed of life is not the complete pattern. There are 2 more steps to take which each reveal yet another layer and also another new set of patterns and information. Following the rule of always move to the innermost points before projecting, God creates an additional 6 circles on top of the existing seed of life pattern. This motion is often referred to as the second vortex motion. This process is repeated once more, the third vortex motion, which finally gives rise to the next new complete pattern known as the flower of life. This pattern is found throughout the ancient world, but the oldest depiction was found at the Temple of Osiris in Egypt, etched into the granite using a process unknown to modern science. Once again, if we proceed through 2 more vortex-like motions, adding additional circles to the flower of life, eventually we reach the next new complete layer, the final layer as far as it is understood, known as the fruit of life. God has now finished creating the pattern which is used as a template for all material things. Remember, this pattern is still purely imaginary, purely consciousness at this point. You may now be starting to comprehend the basis of the idea that we live in a holographic universe. Everything can be reduced to just 2 things: structure and consciousness, although obviously even structure is derived from consciousness. It is a funny feeling knowing that you exist as a creation of consciousness, of God, given how solid and real the physical world appears. In the next video, I will expand upon some of the patterns and information contained within the forms I showed you in this video, and how this fundamental pattern, nature's first pattern, gives rise to matter, and how it is intimately involved with many aspects of the physical world, could be extrapolated from the patterns formed. I will now show you some more extrapolations, and hopefully it should become clearer to you just how special sacred geometry can be. As before, I am going to be using the 2-dimensional pattern to demonstrate to you various things, as it is far easier to comprehend than a fully 3-dimensional pattern. You must realise, however, that the actual pattern is fully 3-dimensional, and this should become apparent to you shortly when I discuss the Platonic solids. After the tube torus and vesica piscis, the next thing that can be demonstrated is known as the tree of life, derived from the seed of life pattern. It is most commonly recognized as a mystical concept within Kabbalah, and is a motif in various world theologies and philosophies. In Kabbalah, it is used as a tool to understand the nature of God and the manner in which he created the world out of nothing. The details of this particular study are too complicated to overview briefly at this point. The next form that can be extrapolated is known as the egg of life. If we proceed to the second vortex motion as described in the previous video, and remove all the circles from the seed of life except this central one, we create this new form consisting of 8 spheres. This form is three-dimensional, and from our two-dimensional perspective we are unable to see the 8th sphere, which is located behind this central sphere. This pattern is the most balanced and optimum form for 8 spheres existing in direct connection with each other. The reason why it is called the egg of life is because nature uses this form in the embryonic creation process of every single living organism on this planet, with no exceptions. Nature chooses this form because it is the most balanced, most harmonious form possible. We now proceed to arguably one of the most important sets of extrapolations, one which can demonstrate visually as well as mathematically the beauty of sacred geometry. If we take the fruit of life layer defined in the previous video and extract these 13 circles, what we get as a result is known as the holy archetype, Metatron's cube. This can be imagined as an extension of the egg of life, as there are 8 spheres in this central portion, but also an additional sphere attached in perfect alignment to the corner of each one of the 8 central spheres. In total, there are 16 spheres in the three-dimensional version of Metatron's cube. It is interesting to note that the parameters of a hypercube, also known as the terasect, can be extrapolated easily from Metatron's cube, and for this reason literally adds another aspect of dimensionality to this particular form. This arrangement of the spheres is geometrically perfect, so adding or subtracting spheres as previously hinted at with the transformation from the egg of life to Metatron's cube has no impact on the integrity of the geometry itself. For this reason, you should be able to now comprehend the holographic idea as mentioned at the end of the previous video. We have just hinted at a 4th-dimensional concept from a 3-dimensional structure. However, as we cannot directly perceive a 4th dimension, there is little else to mention on this topic at this point. The most widely recognized aspect of Metatron's cube, however, is its relation to the Platonic solids. It should be noted that although Plato's name is attached to these forms, it has been discovered that the late Neolithic people of Scotland had Platonic solid ornaments made of stone 1,000 years prior to Plato. This obviously creates a big question of where they got this wisdom from, but that is for another line of inquiry, another video series. There are 5 Platonic solids: the tetrahedron, the octahedron, the hexahedron, the icosahedron, and the dodecahedron. What makes these shapes so special is that the faces, edges and angles are all congruent, and that each one can fit perfectly inside a sphere with all the corners touching. There are no other shapes in existence which satisfy these conditions, and that is what makes these shapes so special. These 5 Platonic solids also form pairs, known as duals. The hexahedron and the octahedron make up one pair, and the icosahedron and the dodecahedron make up the other. The tetrahedron is the odd one out, as it is a dual with itself. What this means is that one can be created inside the other, known as nesting, by connecting all the midpoints of all the faces. This process can be repeated to infinity in either direction, and demonstrates very clearly the idea of symmetry in a very unique way. It is also possible to nest each Platonic solid within the other 4 without error, however the symmetry is not as perfect as it is with the duals. So, how do the Platonic solids relate to Metatron's cube? If we take the 2-dimensional form of 13 circles for the sake of simplicity, and using straight lines connect the centre of every circle to the centre of every other circle, we end up with this pattern. What this has created is the parameters for the 2-dimensional flattened versions of the Platonic solids, with the exception of the dodecahedron. The dodecahedron is special in that it requires one to rotate the 3-dimensional version of Metatron's cube by a ratio of phi in order to reveal the missing lines. However, one can add the additional lines on the 2-dimensional version by dividing these sides by the golden ratio, and adding in the extra lines accordingly. It is perhaps for this reason that Plato and Pythagoras shielded others from the dodecahedron, as this particular aspect of wisdom is quite unique, and maybe they felt it would reveal too much if taught. Each platonic solid is also associated with an element, although these connections I consider to be subjective at this point. The ether, for example, is known to be a formless, omnipresent, immaterial substance, and thus being associated with a geometric shape doesn't quite work. It has been postulated that the dodecahedron is actually associated with the heavens, or cosmos, and interestingly, cosmologists in France and the US suggested that the universe may actually be in the shape of a dodecahedron, based upon their study of the cosmic microwave background radiation. There are some extra shapes which can be extrapolated from the 5 platonic solids. These are known as the Archimedean solids, of which there are 13 in total. 7 of these can be obtained by truncating one of the platonic solids. Truncating essentially means cutting off the corners of an existing shape to reveal a new face for the previously existing vertex. 2 of the Archimedean solids can be attained by the opposite process, expanding the platonic solid. The final 2 are created by snubbing a platonic solid, which is done by moving the faces outward whilst twisting. These shapes and the processes just described require more explanation, but I do not have enough time in this video to do so. I have saved this final extrapolation for last because it will lead on to the next chapter in this video series. It is known as the divine proportion, or the golden ratio, and like the mathematical value of pi is an irrational number, this means the exact value can never be fully determined, as the creation of this number results in an infinite series of non-repetitive digits. The most simple way to demonstrate the golden ratio is to use the Vesica Piscis layer of nature's first pattern, although there are many other opportunities to demonstrate it, such as with the platonic solids. I will now show you the process of calculating the golden ratio from the beginning. We start with a single length with the value of 1, and using this as the radius, we trace a circle. The diameter of the circle obviously has a value of 2. The next step is to simply create another circle of identical size with its central point located anywhere on the circle defined previously. This creates the Vesica Piscis shape as explained in the previous video. If we add in some guidelines, the rest of this calculation should be very easy to comprehend. We can now construct a simple right-angled triangle using the values of 1 and 2, 1 for the height and 2 for the width. The hypotenuse length can be calculated using trigonometry. Using this length, which has a value of 0.5, we rotate it around this point to trace another circle. Where this circle intersects the hypotenuse, we have the final parameter for the golden ratio, which is this newly created length along the hypotenuse. We have now successfully demonstrated this geometric relationship, known as the golden ratio, and have an approximate number of 1.618 as its value. This can also be used to construct what is known as the golden spiral, and is most commonly recognized in the Nautilus shell. The golden spiral can be approximated using a series of numbers known as the Fibonacci series. This relationship is an aspect I will be mentioning in the next video, where I will show you sacred geometry in the biological world and how nature utilizes these forms and principles to give rise to the symphony of life we see all around us.
If you've seen my segments on Garvin Gardens, check him out, Ken. And we talk a lot about FAQ, so frequently asked questions about moringa. I'm known as a moringa expert. I'm not really sure how I got that description or title, but I do love learning more. So you have moringa seeds here. We've got moringa seeds. I just sold, I think, 1,000 set last week, and you know, people eat them. Like, I know one guy who had atherosclerosis and high cholesterol. He used to eat a whole bag of these like they were potato chips, and it did end up helping his atherosclerosis. So it prevented a future, case of heart disease, which, I've seen that run in my family in different areas with, what is it called, a triple bypass. And it's saddening when you have to deal with it because you're scared. This literally was a message from God. Gave me this as I was out in the ocean, and I just found it at the end of my meditation. Really cool because you have the sea moss and there's sea grapes out there. So if you get near the ocean, go out, don't be scared, ground, get your feet in there, get your hair wet, gaze at the sun. People are scared of these things, but do it, try it, don't care what people have to say. You have a live coconut here, you just put that in the ground. We got some around here, and I got some in the other sector of our Belizean property, which will have other superfoods to grow. So if you're into mangosteen, soursop, graviola, vanilla, snow bean, these different things are really cool because they taste good, they're super good for you. There's thousands of cures, and the fresh air, it just makes you feel high on life, and the sun, the air, it's staying grounded, you know. It's like you're just meant to be here. And you know, you got watermelon, we got, what do we have done? This is, you know, different things, you know, as far as superfoods. What do we got? Avocado, more papaya. Oh yes, and then this one I can't wait. Maybe one day we'll make it available for people in the States, especially tamarindo. Tamarindo is one of the #1 anti-aging fruits known to man, next with avocado and what's the other one? There's a couple different ones, but this is the #1. A lady claimed, they said scientifically, knocked off 40 years of her life with this juice, tamarindo. Go check it out. And I'd love to make that available, as well as cacao and different things. So we have a whole seed bank, and we have seed banks available for sale. I don't know, corn, what else? This is
we got the baby mango going on. A lot of these are beginning their tour and journey of offering.
Castor oil.
These you can make, actually eat, and you can
beautiful
pick 'em
red
and put 'em in a
vibrancy.
salad. It's a viscous.
And if you're looking to support us, it would really help. I've put 11 years worth of work. We're going on our 12th year. moringaheaven.ecrater.com, like an e-crater. So it's moringaheaven.ecrater.com. And everything's there. We can make the moringa tree available for you, small sprigs, or the bigger, more mature, like some of these that might be more expensive. But you can cut these trees back, and what's interesting is you throw them in the ground and they'll just come right back up. You can even take branches and sprigs and cold cuttings on them. So there's that, and we're offering a lot of different stuff. If people are interested, call us at 855-841-9659. You can email me. You can find me just about anywhere on the web. You know, Twitter, Facebook, and whatnot. YouTube. We have hundreds of videos. I had videos taken down. There's a lot of different stuff on there, and but we're re-uploading them. If you check out facebook.com/realplott, so REALPLOTT, Real Plott, facebook.com/realplott. You'll see I'm re-uploading every production I've ever made, and this is kind of a side door because they're not removing them because of the way I'm doing it now. So that's cool. And there's moringa seeds, how to purify water, how moringa blocks radiation from a cellular level. This is just really the solution for the modern day crisis we are living in. 1 out of 2 people will get cancer, 1 out of 3 will develop diabetes, and 1 out of 4 of those will contract and go through death or amputation from diabetes. What is there? Heart disease is the #1 killer of the world. 1 out of 2. And it's kind of like this subtle thing, because like, well, we want to eat this way, we want to do this. And, you know, if you care, you have the guts and courage to change and consistently do it long term. You know, it starts the guts and the heart and then the brain. But to do the actions is the only step that's required. So, you know, with that said, I hope that everybody gets something out of this, and I hope you do manage to consider, because like I said, I don't really have to be doing this. It's not like a trademark sales pitch here going on, but I really do love to see people who are sincere and want to change or want to do this. You know, everybody makes mistakes or messes up or whatever, but essentially, I really believe there's a balance or a singularity that no matter what, you are on the right track, no matter where you're at. But as soon as anger and all this stuff gets in, of course, nobody likes that. Nobody likes confrontation, fear. Guts, no fear. You know, everything on your path is fine. You're doing great. You're almost there. We're headed out. We're going to the center. No matter what belief you have, that's the reality, right? Because we all die one day. But in the meantime, do you want to be miserable or do you want to be happy? It's up to you. The choice is yours. You don't have to let anybody decide that for you. Just be happy, you know. I know it's hug a tree. Screw it. You know, who cares what people think? Yeah, you raise your hands to the skies above, fresh air. That ether.
It's fresh air.
It's precious. It's fresh air. And, you know, when you have people who do not care, we'll just walk around. You know, that's the ether. We found that comes from the aurora borealis. You never hear about that. What's the aurora borealis? There's 4 different types of aurora borealis. It creates all this green bioplasma. Why does that not be talked about? That should be taught to everybody. The first thing you learn, that all life created by God, the creator, infinite source, this green is coming from the aurora borealis because it's even green. But what is it? It's magical, isn't it? Yeah, we live in a very magical world. So don't hold yourself short. Just, I mean, this is Castor. So, there's that, and then the light above, it gives all this energy. And I know we can easily get distracted by material things. And I believe that's the challenge. We are here, this is a dumping ground. And don't dump yourself short, If you're going to dump, use it as compost. I mean, the bad shit in life, use it for good. Because everything can end up being good. It depends on how you want to, look at it. Not just a perspective, but it's reality. That everything is fair. Everything is just. So don't make left or right, good or bad. There's just no sense in doing that. Because it doesn't have to be. You decide that, And that's kind of how you fertilize your soul. And you can gain positivity out of that. If you want to be positive, positivity is not necessarily ignoring the negative, because a lot of times I've said, man, this is terrible what I'm doing, or this life, or this thing. And for me, where I'm at, maybe other people don't identify, but positivity is overcoming that thing for you, and your gut, you'll be told to say, well, that's not right what I'm doing. So then change it, And nobody can tell you that. Within yourself. All answers in this reality lie within. All of them. I can promise you that. And that's something that's really cool, because I learned these things therapeutically, being out in nature, breathing the air or ether, gazing at the sun. I'm barefoot. You get millions of ions. As I'm speaking, millions of ions are just trickling free energy up my body. You talk about free energy and technology and progression. You have technology in your brain. This is your king dome. We're under a dome, and it's all in your head. It's so beautiful. This is all a vibrational frequency. So you can gain all this stuff within yourself. The heart is where the home is. Your heart stops, you're gone. But you will go somewhere greater. So just take this as an experience that is fun. Even through the terrible events, just ignore it. That's something to ignore. It can be better to overcome just by ignoring the small shit. Or don't sweat the small stuff, as they say. It's true. I mean, if you just let go, let God, or however you want to just let it go. Feel it. I always come out here and I'll gaze for hours. I could gaze all day long. I really am content with that. Just out here, breathing that air, gazing, grounded. It doesn't matter what people think of me, or you. If that's what really makes you feel happy, then do it and stay grounded. And then whatever decisions you make in life, you're headed home. And it's interesting, because that's when it gets interesting. When you're dirt poor, you don't have anything, you're struggling, that's actually when it gets interesting, because life starts. And then how do you handle the situation? Just go through it, however you know how to do it. And nobody can judge that. But even people who judge or condemn you, they're part of your challenge. So you can consistently get better at how you handle the situation. Do you lash out in anger, get depressed or remorse or whatever? You don't have to. Right? Because you don't need anyone to control your emotions, and emotions are not necessarily weakness. Go through that. Cry. Feel it. People in the world tell you don't do that, that's weak. No. Let it go. If you got to cry for 10 hours, do it. Look, there's the eagle right there. See? And the eagle symbolizes God. That's Horus. That is the highest of the highest birds. It's Horus. Or what you say, God, the creator. And I loved it, because I was out here one time and I was in the pool meditating, and I thought, that kind of opened up to me. The kingdom of heaven was right here. This was the Garden of Eden, and I thought, wow, I just can't, I didn't get that anywhere else, where there's concrete squares. They're squaring the circle. Circle is life, nature. And we can circle the square. When we go back out here, I had mosquitoes at me at first, and I had a relationship with them. I said, stop biting me. I have not been bitten since. You'd think I'm crazy, but if you do, it's whatever. But I know my experience is I know what I go through, and you can just go through life being guided by this energy, this electromagnetic di-fi electric energy. Science is even talking about it. They recently found a black hole eat up a sun, just destroyed it. A sun the size of our sun. And I mean, they're coming out. Of course, it was computer generated, but I think they're letting us know what's about to happen, and that's cool. Because if you didn't have the black sun, which science has proven that it does exist, we wouldn't have ground enough for these plants to come up and bloom. You take it away, everything would die. So that is the source of life, and it's coming out. And I'm glad that I'm a minister that can preach about it, to a degree. Because one way or another, I will see you on the flip side, and you will see that I was right. It's crazy. It's what everybody's talking about. And what else do we got? We're going to have mangoes, papaya, mangosteen, all of it. We're going to have soil over there, so that's going to be cool. And then we have Moringa Kingdom Part 2 on a different side of the island. Well, yeah, it is an island, isn't it? Kind of. Well, it's on the border. It's not really. But in a jungle. And that's kind of the Moringa Kingdom. Is, if anything you guys want, let me know. We can ship it to the States. Because, yes, this stuff does cure cancer, diabetes, and all kinds of different diseases, because it has life minerals, bioplasma, and things in it that we don't necessarily have, and we're lacking. So, yeah, I'm going to say a health disclaimer that I'm not saying I claim that it can cure whatever you're going through, but I would say that there's nothing better than what's found in nature around us that can stop your suffering and stop your pain.
It's worked for you.
Yeah.
For a lot of people.
I mean, I feel good all the time, no matter what. I can do things. I can live life. I can, enjoy myself. Whatever it is I'm doing, I know how to stay grounded. I don't need anything but, nature, really, when it comes down to it, year to year. And, it's just, anything that's green has that bioplasma. It has that life. So have you ever seen flesh or a dead animal have green to it? It has red. And red implicates a different type of life. It is bioplasma. It's interesting. But it's life that we're not, I don't believe, really supposed to consume. And that's part of your test, because it only makes you worse off in the end. When you eat what I like to call it flesh, because flesh tells you what it is. It's not just meat, because see, coconut can have meat, and it's good for you. Meat is good. But this is animal flesh. It's dead, bacteria-ridden animal flesh. There's no two ways about it. And actually, I think when you get outside of that indoctrination, you begin to grow and progress and see that that's not what I want. And I feel better off of it. Everyone I've ever worked with that actually does quit, they say, Eric, I got to admit, my best days are now. You were right. You put me on fruits, veggies, nuts. And if that's my existence here for these type of, artificial intelligent beings, these people, if, real or not, that is what I stand for. And I intend to bring forth heaven, peace, and serenity on earth, and no remorse. You can make fun of, balk at, naysay, and that's part of my challenge. I appreciate it. Thank you for making me a stronger person to actually rely on myself, because that is what this paradise, this heaven is right here, and it starts within. You bring it in, and it's an experience like, wow, I feel really good out here, and at peace. And then someone else could say, well, I've got a brand new car and I got a nice place in a pool. And 5 years down the road, they forget about those things. And they're like, wait, was I happy with those things? Really? Or, do you have to keep, keeping up with the Joneses or whatever it is? For me, I don't even care anymore, because I'm grounded and all that. And no, I don't need it. I slept outside the other day, and it was amazing. You can do that. You say, well, I'm not there yet, Eric, and I'm not trying to get anybody to be where I'm at. But if you don't hear it from some source, you may never consider that it's a reality. It does exist. There's heaven, peace, serenity on earth in every form, And do I still make mistakes? You may make mistakes, but you handle it, and then you just